Nyní máme na řadě již dalšího řečníka, jímž je doktor Martin Russell, který je ředitelem Diasporamatters, raději nechávám překlad na tlumočnicích, to znamená asi pravděpodobně na diaspoře záleží. Dokončil svůj doktorát velký právě na téma diaspory na Clinton Institute na University College v Dublinu. A celé to téma diaspory ho provází během jeho pracovního života, takže uvedu jenom pár okolností z té poslední doby. Byl třeba čelným konzultantem projektu financovaného Evropskou unií, jehož cílem bylo vyvinout politiku pro národní diasporu Malawi, nebo v současné době vede projekt, který se týká přístupu k diaspoře v Albánii. O tématu diaspory velice rozsáhle publikoval pro nejrůznější klienty, ať už jimi byl Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade v Irsku, nebo IOM, případně United Kingdom Trade and Investment, USAID a Světová banka. Jeho příspěvek se jmenuje Proč na diaspoře záleží, Why Diaspora Matters, globální přístup, a global approach. A nyní poprosím pana Russella. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning. You could do better than that. Good morning. Morning, yes. It's early in the morning. We'll have a little bit of fun, okay? A little bit of knowledge and a little bit of fun. So to begin, I'll ask a question. There's 3 Irish pubs in Prague. Has anybody in this room had a pint of Guinness in their life? Raise your hand. I have bad news. You're not Czech, you're Irish. And there's a little message in that, in the sense of we're very inclusive in terms of who we call the Irish diaspora. Slow.
Ano. Když tak paní kolegyně vám to ukáže. So we are sorry for the interruption. I think you can go on.
No, you're fine. So, I had the pleasure of meeting Lucy approximately 3 years ago in Budapest, and her energy and passion for working with the Czech diaspora, and particularly Czech School Without Borders, was infectious. So when I got an email about 2 months ago saying, will you come to Prague? I said yes for 2 reasons. First, Lucy, and second, because I was never been in Prague. So I have to get to Prague, right? So she gave me a very simple question on the outset: why does Diaspora Matters? And I run a company called Diaspora Matters, so I should have an answer, right? That would be the logic, but it's quite a difficult question. So what I want to do this morning is, as I said, have a little bit of fun. I will be asking questions, so do listen. Don't check your Facebook, and so on. But what I want to do is take you on a bit of a journey and share some examples of what I think we have done well in my country, what's happening elsewhere, and look at some new potentials for the Czech Republic as well, in terms of engaging with their diaspora. So as a company and as a concept, diaspora became really important when this happened. On the front page of The Economist, the title was The Magic of Diasporas. And that was a watershed moment. It was in 2011, and it was a watershed moment because a trade publication, world-renowned, copped on to the power of diaspora. And what's really interesting about diaspora is that it's a horrible, horrible word. It doesn't sound nice. It sounds like 2 tablets you take for a headache, if you think about it. So when The Economist led with this, it was a signal of attention. So the challenge then was, what do we do with it? So why was The Economist beginning to talk about it? In 2011, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State for the US government. And she made diaspora engagement a key pillar to her time as Secretary of State. If she wins the election in a couple of months, which is looking likely she will, this will be a very big topic again. And Hillary Clinton's decision to look at this topic came from this lady. Professor Anne-Marie Slaughter is a professor at Princeton. And what she argues, and this is why it's really important for countries such as Ireland and the Czech Republic to beginning to look at this topic, is the world is changing. And it's changing at such a pace that every company, organization, city, and country needs its global friends advocating for it. So Anne-Marie Slaughter said, the world 25 years ago was like a snooker table. It was like a billiard table. The great powers of the world bouncing off each other. But she said, in today's world, the measure of your power is your connectedness. And if we think about that for a second, the measure of your power is your connectedness. There's incredible opportunities in that, because our ability to connect has never been greater. Extending beyond that, it is a question of power. The world has always been run by power. So Joseph Nye is a professor at Harvard. He echoed this and he said, 25 years ago, the world was about hard power, H-A-R-D. But today, it's about soft power. Bringing people to your view and mindset through negotiation rather than coercion. And diasporas are really powerful there, because in many ways, they're unofficial ambassadors. And of course, official embassies and consulates have a really important part to play in that. So we're now in the age of smart power, which is people-to-people networks, people-to-people connectivity. And for countries, your best asset in that is your diaspora. So what we're basically getting at, and this is a very quick overview, is that we're living in a changed world. How many people in this room have heard of Twitter? Hands up. I told you I will ask questions. Twitter. 11 years ago, we did not have Twitter. Think about that pace of change. The US government held an outreach last week on the role of diaspora for diplomats, and the only way you could ask a question was through Twitter. 11 years ago, nobody could have asked a question. So innovation, communication, and technology is changing the way we live. So, big question. I'll give you a hint. This is a city in the United States. Does it look like a city in the United States? Close, close. Anybody else? Detroit. 25 years ago, that was the best city to live in the United States. For employment, quality of life, education. This is Detroit today. Detroit was built on the automotive industry. And I had the pleasure yesterday of being collected by the airport. Your colleague's husband worked in the automotive industry, so we talked about this for quite some time. Now, anybody know where this is? It's in China. But the city. Close. Anybody else? Shenzhen. 25 years ago, Shenzhen was a fishing village. Look at it now. Anybody in this room have an iPhone? What do they make in Shenzhen? iPhones. There's 632 components in an iPhone. Think about that. Not one is made in the United States. Yet, approximately $234 profit of every iPhone made goes to a US company. It might be made there, but the bulk of the profit goes to a US company. So when I'm talking about a changed world, the old days of raw materials, production, and distribution, they're finished. We are now in the global economy. And for countries, whether it's Ireland, the Czech Republic, we actually have the potential now to punch above our weight. Don't tell the Irish government I said this. Apple owed 13 billion in tax in Dublin because of our corporate tax rate. It was announced a couple of weeks ago. So we are in the global economy, and your diasporas can actually help you get to where you want to be. Now, the really challenging part of that politically is that it's a long-term vision, and that's the art of leadership. Leadership is the business of tomorrow. So when you talk about your diasporas, everybody talks about a couple of things, and these are some of them. These are big numbers. 244 million people live in a country other than the one they were born in. There's 80 million Europeans living outside their country of birth. 800 million people have moved internally, and there's a lot of focus at the minute around migration, diaspora, and development around cities. Because a lot of people are moving from the rural to the urban internal migration. This is a really interesting one, and I put this in because Lucy spent some time in Paris. Outside Paris, where do you think the second most influential French city in the world is? London. There's 400,000 highly qualified, highly educated, influential French people in London. The French and the Australians are running London. Right? So we have to think about where we're targeting. This is a really interesting one. There's 5.5 million British people living outside Britain. Don't mention Brexit in many ways, right? And we had a very important moment with the British government last year, and they came to us and said, we would like you to answer 2 questions for us. What can diaspora communities in the UK do for trade and investment? But most importantly, what can the UK diaspora do for trade and investment? And as an Irishman, there was a little bit of, how can I put this politely? Little bit of satisfaction. Because I said, for the last couple of 100 years, you have been calling them expats. I said, no, you're calling them diaspora. And I said, you had to go to your neighbor to figure out how to do it. But that's really important because the word now and the concept is becoming mainstream. So what's exciting for organizations such as Czech Schools Without Borders, the government of the Czech Republic, there's a lot of money in this topic at the moment. A lot of the major donors are beginning to look at it quite seriously. I've had the pleasure of going to Malawi, I go to Mali in 2 weeks, and they're really interested in this topic. And of course, why they're interested in the topic is that big number at the bottom. When people talk about diaspora, the next word out of their mouth is remittances, because it's a significant chunk of change. In 2015, 440 billion, and there's huge developmental capacity there. So we'll come back to that in a moment. So this is coming back to the question I was asked to answer. If somebody says to you, why does diaspora matter? These are the 4 questions. What helped bring peace to my country? What made China a manufacturing giant? What made India a global technology hub? And what made Israel the great startup nation? We have so much to learn from the Israeli examples in this type of work. It's phenomenal. So not just the answer, but part of the answer is networking their diasporas. And the key to becoming really good at diaspora engagement is to become a world-class networker. And here's the really interesting thing about networks. We're surrounded by them now. At the beginning, I said Facebook, Twitter. Has anybody in this room been taught how to network? Went to school and studied how to network? No university in the world teaches networking. Think about that in the world we live in. And no company particularly has a strategy for networking. So we're all out here networking, and we don't know how to do it. So I'm going to give some examples. I said I'd bring you on a journey. China is phenomenal. People talk about the emergence of China in the last 15, 20 years. Going through a bit of a tough time at the minute, but people talk about the emergence of China. That's wrong. This is the re-emergence of China. Well, back in history long enough, China was an incredibly powerful economic force. So if you want to look at the Chinese diaspora example, approximately 80% of foreign direct investment into China comes from its diaspora. Think about that for a second. India, and this is really important. Last year, Prime Minister Modi, he went to New York. He sold out Madison Square Garden quicker than the New York Knicks. He sold out Wembley Stadium quicker than the English football team. And what's really interesting about it is that 14 years ago, there was one relationship between India and its diaspora. They hated each other. They absolutely hated each other. So as a government in 2002, the Indian government went out and commissioned a study, and they went and spoke to their diaspora. And this is the first step to success. It comes back to the question that Lucy was talking about, what can I do for the Czech Republic, or what can the Czech Republic do for me? You have to listen to your diaspora. If you assume you know what they want, you're in trouble. So spend some time listening to your diaspora. So within 14 years, India, apart from Israel, are the best in the world in this. And of course, shameless self-promotion is allowed. So the Irish are really good at this. So, as we all know, the global economic recession in the early 2000s, my country was the poster child of failure. Somebody mentioned this morning the Celtic tiger. Are people familiar with that concept in Ireland? The economy was the Celtic tiger. Somebody shot it. We don't know if it's dead or wounded, but somebody shot the Celtic tiger, right? Massive unemployment, massive immigration. So what we did to our diaspora, we said, we need your help. And it's okay to ask for help. We live in a world where people think you have to succeed on your own. If we talk about a world of connectivity and networks, don't be afraid to ask for help. So we created some stuff. The Irish Abroad Unit, which is the government wing in the Department of Foreign Affairs, they have a program, and not many governments do this. It's called the Immigrant Support Program. And this would be a funding mechanism where organizations such as the Czech School Without Borders gets financial support. It's for helping your vulnerable immigrants. And in the Irish case, we have a lot of people dealing with issues of alcoholism, drug abuse, illegal status in the US, so organizations are funded to help these people. We had the gathering, and the gathering is a very simple idea. We asked our diaspora, if you want to come back, come back. Tourism. The tourist sector profit increased by 17%. Visitors from the US was up 375,000, incredibly impressive. Other examples include Connect Ireland, and Connect Ireland is about jobs. And for us to get government to take us seriously, or any international organization, we have to prove one simple thing. Diaspora equals jobs. Because one of the greatest crises of our time is youth unemployment. So Connect Ireland had a simple idea. We asked our diaspora, if you hear of a company looking to expand internationally, connect them with us. Tell them about Ireland. Be the ambassador. If that company relocates, you as the connector gets a financial reward for every job created. It's a partnership between the philanthropist and the government. The philanthropist covers the operational costs and the government covers the reward. Right? Clever idea. So other areas that you can look into: Ireland Reaching Out, which is genealogy, the Ireland Funds, which is philanthropic, diaspora and sport. Sport is incredibly powerful. But I want to get into what we're actually talking about. We're talking about diaspora capital. And this is a working definition, so feel free to disagree. Diaspora capital refers to the resources available to a country, region, city, or location, and is made up of the people, networks, finance, ideas, attitudes, and concerns for their place of origin, ancestry, or affinity. What we like about that definition is not just financial. There's more to diaspora engagement than the finances. So these might be difficult to see here, and I think we're sharing this presentation in some format. We've identified 30 areas where your diaspora can have an influence. It's divided up into 3 sections, which is the financial flows, for obvious reason, the knowledge flows, and the people flows. And for countries such as the Czech Republic or Ireland, and those of a relative scale and size, ideas are really important. Carmine Gallo, who's a phenomenal creative thinker, in the first line of his book, Talk Like Ted, I would recommend everybody to read it. He said, ideas are the currency of the 21st century. And if we think about that at the minute, diasporas are natural conduits of ideas. So we need to do more to engage them. So how do you do it? Remember I said, why does it matter? So the why question I hope I touched on in the sense of global connectivity, competitiveness, ideas, so on and so forth. How do you do it? And I said a couple of moments ago, the key to this is becoming a world-class networker. So we're going to give a little, very quick little exercise, an insight. There's 4 stages to diaspora engagement and to networking. And this will take a bit of a mindset change. And I do a lot of work with many large private corporations, and I know within 5 minutes of training their staff, most of them won't do it. Some of them will. So it will actually be survival of the fittest in many ways. So I'll talk about diaspora engagement first and then networking. In terms of diaspora engagement, research. 3 questions you need to figure out. Who are your diaspora? When I said at the beginning, who had a pint of Guinness and you're Irish, I wasn't joking. We define our diaspora very, very broadly. We are a country of 4 million. We have a nation of the heart of 70 million. There's something in that. And there's a very subtle, and a lot of this is a very difficult political decision how you define that, because issues of identity are quite rigid. And this is where diaspora is actually quite different to migration. Migration is the language of borders, passports, citizenship. Diaspora is the language of affinity, belonging, looser. So the definitions have to be according that way. So who are your diaspora? Most importantly, where are they? In the Irish case, US, UK, Australia and Canada now. Rest of the world, we do a little bit. So limited resources, you target. Most importantly, coming back to the developmental needs of the Czech Republic or any organizations, what are they doing? We live in an age today, it's not about where you are, you will be defined by what you do. So what are they doing? Cultivation, this is really important, and Lucy's question leading into it was important in that regard. Do not think of diaspora engagement as a transaction. If you think of engaging your diaspora as a transaction, whether it's for investment, you will get limited success. You need to think of it as a relationship. And a relationship is a longer end game. So cultivation is your relationship building phase. If you go back to the definition of diaspora capital, remember we had that word concern? Figure out with your diaspora, what are their hopes, concerns, and so on and so forth. So I might be cut for time, I'm not sure, but yeah, we'll wrap up. So solicitation is the ask. If you don't make an ask, you do not get. So make sure you say an ask, you make an ask. And the last one is stewardship. How many people in this room on a daily basis are told, well done and thank you? Silence. They are the 2 most powerful phrases you have in your vocabulary. Because what happens if you engage your diaspora in a transactional mindset, people will stop at solicitation. The more you say thank you, there's an old trick when you're networking. Say thank you 5 times in 5 different ways. Because I'll leave you with this story. What you want to do is that when your diaspora are out there working in their office and it's lashing rain and it's cold, and they get to the office at 9 a.m. and they're cold and wet, when your email pops up, they feel warm. That's the art of it. So the biggest potential for the Czech Republic, I haven't spoken on this publicly. This is a sign of things to come. 80% of private wealth in the world is in the hands of people over the age of 60. Yet in most developed societies, what happens when you're 65? You're told to retire. Society tells you, we don't want any more. Yet they have all the money, they have all the ideas, and they have all the connections. So this is an incredible report by Accenture that in the US, by 2050, which is not that long away, right? It's about 35 years ago. 25 years ago, Shenzhen was a fishing village, right? So it's not that long ago. There will be 33 trillion US dollars transferred intergenerationally. And Diaspora has a role in play to that, because rich people, option one is to give it to their kids. They will give them enough. They won't give it all. So it's what Warren Buffett said. It's not what you leave your kids, it's what you instill in them. The second option is that they can die with it. You can't bring your money with you, right? It won't keep you warm. So the third option is they can pay taxes on it. And rather than paying taxes on it, do you know what they're beginning to do? Give it away. And take the US, for example, same in the UK, it's a nation of immigrants, right? It's what makes the United States and the UK actually really, really great. So when you get to that stage of life, what questions do you begin to ask yourself? What's my legacy? Where am I from? So on and so forth. So diaspora is really important. For the Czech Republic, I will set you a mission and some homework. Your business now is to build relationships with those people that can help the Czech Republic get to where it wants to be in 20 years, 25 years, 35. That's your decision. Thank you for your time. Thank you to the translators. My accent is strong. So any questions you can follow.